Okay, I've just got off the phone from the vet talking about what you need to do to take your pet into Europe after the 1st of January. Now, obviously this is not including COVID. COVID is not a thing in this entire video. But I've got some good news, I've got some bad news, and I've got some just downright frustrating news. So on that note, let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Kat from the motorhome travel website Wandering Bird, where we share tips and tricks for touring the UK and Europe by motorhome and camper. Now today is a video for everyone who has a pet and wants to take it to Europe. I have just had a phone call with our vet in the UK and I wanted to share some of the information that got passed along, which some of it's good, some of it's not. I know that there's been a lot of confusion because the rules have been changing based on whether we were in a deal or we didn't have a deal and all the rest of that. But as far as both myself and the vet and apparently the UK government are concerned, these are now the rules. This is what is going to happen from the 1st of January 2021, and when and if you can travel to Europe, then this is what you'll have to do if you have a pet. Now, obviously I have a dog. I've been focusing mainly on what you have to do with a dog. If you have a cat or a ferret or any other type of pet that you would want to be travelling with, you're going to need to speak to your vet. As I said briefly in the intro, we're not talking about any global pandemics or whether you can or cannot travel to Europe. We're just talking about what the rules are now that the Brexit deadline has happened. The 1st of January 2021 has been and gone, and this is what you have to do from this point on, take your pet to Europe. Before I dive on in, if you're new to the channel, hi, welcome. If you enjoyed this video, we'd like it if you gave us a little thumbs up. It's always nice to get some encouragement. And if you want to hear more about travelling to Europe and around the UK in a motorhome, a camper van or any other form of road trip, then by all means hit subscribe and the little bell to be notified when our next video comes out. We are going to be doing a couple more Brexit videos because there's so many things that we need to be aware of now. So I'm going to be sharing a few more on those in the coming months. So again, if you want to hear more about that, click that little bell and it'll tell you when the next video comes out. Okay, so there are three basic things. Let's start that again, shall we? There are three basic things that you have to take your pet from the UK to Europe. The first is you have to be microchipped, or the pet has to be microchipped, and that's going to be checked at the borders all over the place. The second thing is that you have to have an animal health certificate, and the third thing is that you have to have a rabies vaccination. Okay, let's start with the good news. The good news is that if you have a current UK pet passport, which are unfortunately now going to be obsolete, but if you have a current one and your pet rabies vaccinations are up to date, you do not need to have another rabies jab. You're covered, you're done. All you need from that point on is to get an animal health certificate. We'll get into that shortly. But as long as you keep your rabies top-ups up to date, you do not have to go through the whole process of rabies jabs and blood tests and all of that thing. Next bit of good news is that the rabies blood test is no longer a thing. You literally have your rabies jab, you have to wait up to 21 days, and then you can travel. There are other things you have to do as well, but the whole 3 months, has it had the blood test, does it pass, because Mac failed his twice, I think, that's no longer a thing. So that's 2 bits of good news. I may have peaked because I think that's pretty much all the good news, but that's the good news. If you're confused, don't panic. I've just turned the lights on. It was getting really dark and stormy over here. Anyway, so if you haven't got your approved rabies certificate at the moment, you only need to do it 3 weeks, 21 days before you travel. Now, I would suggest you go a little bit earlier than that, but there's no longer this whole have to have the jab, then have to wait a certain amount of time, then have to have the blood test to see if the rabies jab is taken. If they hadn't, which is what happened with us with Mac, they have to have another rabies jab, then they have to wait the allotted time again, then they have to have another blood test. That's all gone. Like, that's gone completely, which is amazing. So if you've got a new dog, and obviously they have to be 12 weeks old, but once you've got past that point and they have their rabies jab, you can travel within 3 weeks. Or after 3 weeks, which is great. So you need the microchip, the rabies certificate. The last thing that you need before you can go from the UK to Europe with your pet is an animal health certificate. So your UK pet passport is now obsolete. Doesn't mean anything, but I would always carry it anyway, in all fairness. What you now need to do is you need to go and book an appointment with your vet maximum of 10 days before you travel. Now there isn't a minimum. So I asked my vet this and she said that technically if you were on the evening ferry from Portsmouth to Cannes, you could turn up in the morning and go to the vet. I wouldn't leave it quite that late just in case something goes wrong and you haven't got your animal health certificate by the time you need to travel, so I would probably go a day or at least before you want to go, but maximum of 10 days before you travel you need to go to the vet and get an animal health certificate issued. And this is literally, they're going to make sure that they've got their microchip, make sure that they've got their rabies jab, have a look over, make sure they look generally healthy and sign a piece of paper. That's it. That is pretty much all the animal health certificate is. And it's really frustrating because you are going to need one of these things for every single trip. So if you go to France for a week, come back, and then you want to go to France and a couple of weeks later for another week, you have to go again to the vet and get a brand new animal health certificate. Even better, she says sarcastically, if you want to go to Europe and you have your animal health certificate, you need a different one for going to Ireland and Northern Ireland. And for the purposes of the animal health certificate thing, Northern Ireland is no longer included in the UK, as far as we can understand it. So if you want to go from Wales to Northern Ireland, you will still need an animal health certificate. But you need a different one going to Ireland than you do to Europe, which is ridiculous. And I'm not making this up. Even better, my vet, which fine, on the south of England and are a little bit on the pricey side, but they're going to charge people £111 per certificate. So God help you if you have 2 or 3 dogs, because my mind blew at this point. So much money for a piece of paper that's valid for like a week or 2 weeks. It just, yeah. So that's, unfortunately, that's the big, frustrating, bad point about this entire system, is that for every single trip you will need to do that. And again, not every vet is able to issue one. So you will need to make sure that you're booked in with a vet who can issue one. God, can you imagine how busy they're going to be just signing slips of paper? It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But them's the rules, sadly. Right, let me just check if there's anything I've missed. Couple of things actually I missed. So, firstly is that your animal health certificate is going to be valid for 4 months, as long as you don't come back into the UK. So if you stay in Europe, you're fine. And I believe it is Europe and not the EU at that point. So as long as you stay in European countries for up to 4 months, and again, the practicalities of the whole 90 and 180, that's a whole different video. But you have got your animal health certificate is valid for up to 4 months from the date of issue. Now, if you are travelling to, and I'm going to read this from the list, is Finland, Norway, Malta, the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland, you will also need to get a tapeworm tablet and have that all signed off on the animal health certificate as well. Now we do this all the time coming from France to the UK. It's really simple. They literally just give them a tablet and sign the passport or sign the certificate. It takes next to no time, but you have to do it up to 5 days before you travel and a minimum of 24 hours before you go. So that's something you're going to need to consider taking in. If you're going to one of those countries that I listed, you have to do the tapeworm as well. Another thing I discovered, and I don't know if this is a change or not, but you cannot travel with more than 5 pets unless, 1, if you're going to a competition, 2, if you're going to a show, 3, if you're going to a sporting event. Now, to my very unknowledgeable brain, I don't know what the difference is between a pet competition, show or sporting event. They seem all the same to me, but you have to have proof that you are travelling for that reason. You cannot, if you own more than 5 dogs, say, take them to Europe, which seems sad, but those are the rules. So again, I don't know if that's a change or not. I've never had to deal with more than 1. So yeah, if you know if that's a change, let me know. One thing, if you have a possibility of getting a Northern Ireland pet passport, you can use the Northern Ireland pet passport to travel with your pet to the UK and back, and you will not need an animal health certificate every time. In exactly the same way, if you can get a European pet passport for any European country, We've got Max got a French passport now, bless him, because it's a heck of a lot easier. You can use that to travel to the UK and back. You still need to do your tapeworm, and you still need to comply with whatever the rules of the country are that you're going to get that passport for. They will still need rabies and microchipping and all of this stuff, but you will not need to get an animal health certificate coming back and forth. Of course, that's going to depend on how often you're going to be in Europe or Northern Ireland, and how often you're going to be in the UK. This is only if you're going to spend most of your time outside of the UK, then it's definitely worth getting your pet an external passport. And that's it. So there are a couple of big changes, the biggest one being the animal health certificate. The rest of it is kind of roughly the same, and honestly, getting rid of that blood test for rabies is fantastic news for everybody. But overall, I think it's the system that's gone backwards a little bit, which is a real shame after the freedom and the lack of having to worry about certificates for the last however many years. But hey, these are now the changes. I hope that's cleared up a little bit, because I know there was a lot of confusion. Certainly in our Facebook group, there have been lots of threads and people not quite sure what they have to do, what they don't have to do. So the good thing is, don't panic. You don't have to start worrying about it now if you want to start planning trips for April. However, having said that, I would start getting things like your rabies stuff done as quickly as possible, because can you imagine how many people are going to be going to the vets to try and get everything figured out if we can travel in Easter, say. Right, I think that's everything from me. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more, hit subscribe. And we will be back very soon. We're hoping to answer lots of reader questions over the next few weeks. We're hoping to do 2 or maybe even 3 a week. Just quick videos answering your questions. So if you'd like to ask us a question, by all means, you can do that via our Facebook group or by joining our email list and sending us an email. All the links for everything that you need are in the notes, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.
We are out. We're talking about a good time. We're chasing